Guys, so in the next few videos, I'm going to cover the kind of the next level of complexity with React applications. So we obviously have this pretty simple, but this isn't very realistic. We would have wanting to be creating applications and websites that are more complicated than this. And so the next kind of stage, next kind of level up, is to talk about interactivity with your website. So obviously one thing is us displaying information, but it's another thing being able to make the website interactable. And so that relates to a few kind of concepts that we're going to cover in the next few videos. But the one I want to cover in this video is user events, by which I mean like clicking events or other events, but predominantly we'll talk about clicking, and that's kind of the main thing, right? So the very most fundamental thing that users interact with every website is clicking on buttons and clicking on links and clicking on different things. And so I want to show you how we do that in React. And so this is the application if you remember from the last video. So first thing we can do is we can make a button. And so again, this is a standard HTML concept, buttons. So let's give it a title. Click this button. And so this is that button. And so if you remember from old school original HTML and JavaScript, the way we kind of do user events or do button events is, for example, so let's say we add a button here. Click this HTML button. We'd have to let's give it an ID. We'd have to get the button in our JavaScript. We have to get the button using document to get element by ID or whatever. And then if you remember, there's a thing called add event listener. So add event listener, you had to call this function on the elements. You have to grab the element via JavaScript, then then call this function add event listener, and you pass in, or as the first parameter, you just put the type of event, and then you pass in a function, and then you would do, you would put whatever you want to happen when you click on that button. And so there was a very kind of indirect way, again, of old school JavaScript where you would have to reference the HTML using your JavaScript DOM methods are called. So you'd have to access it, you have to get it, and then you have to call a method on it. And so if we go to our original HTML version of the website, so this is the button. If you click on it, so yeah, it says hello. So that's the alert that I put on it. And so that's how you did it in that old school way. But obviously in React, we mix our HTML and our JavaScript, and so do we need to be so indirect? We actually do it. And so the way that you add click events and any other event onto an element, instead of grabbing it indirectly in your JavaScript and doing document.getElementById or whatever, so we don't do that in React. Because our HTML is here in our JavaScript, we can directly on it put any attributes or things that we want to do. And so when it comes to user events, there's an attribute for every single event. And so if you type on, you can actually see in the auto suggest, you can actually see there's an attribute on the HTML element for every single event. And there's quite a lot of events, to be honest. The ones that you're most familiar, other than onClick, are probably like onHover, but let's just go with onClick. And so you add this onClick attribute, and then the value of that. So again, so it's an attribute and the value of the attribute is your function. And so here we had a function that says alert hello, and we can do the same thing. We can just have a function here that says alert hello. Let's say hello React. And so click this button, hello React. And so that's pretty much it. That's how you do user events in React. It's much more straightforward again versus the old way of doing it. You just put an attribute on your element, and you can do it on other elements as well, I believe. So we did on hover, I think, on mouse over, let's say mouse enter. We had another function, alert. This is our website description. So you do mouse over it, you get that. Yeah. So that's it. That's pretty much it. So yeah, so what we'll be doing in upcoming videos is we'll kind of build out this image gallery, and we'll make it a bit more interactive so you can click on so we'll make some sort of click events where you can filter between different attributes or characteristics of animals, and we'll start to turn this into a real image gallery, or kind of more realistic image gallery. And so this concept of user events is going to be an important part of that.